It's not just out of nowhere. And that's something that I really wanted to hold true to the Luring when I was writing. I'm like, okay, if anything happens, I want there to be a reason. If someone analyzes my film, and believe me, I've had friends that have done it, I want to make sure that like I can stand by what happened. You may not like my film, hopefully people do, but there's a reason for everything, and some of them are more subtle than others, or whatever. But I mean, the choking is definitely there's definitely a reason for that.
Yes. Now, this is a hard challenge, Christopher, and every once in a while I do this. I'm going to ask you 3 random hard questions. It's your personal opinion. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So the first question is, if a big game studio came up to you right now and said, "Hey, listen, we'll give you access to reboot any IP, any horror film that's already been made," which one would it be and why?
Oh, god damn. To reboot, I would probably, well, I love vampires, and Dracula has been done so many times. I think I might go with Creature from the Black Lagoon. I might, that's something that I'd like to maybe do something totally different. So I wouldn't really be rebooting it because, a lot of that means like, you're kind of staying true to the original in a sense. But I would like to maybe take that idea and just do something, kind of very different, because I think that is a character that, I've always liked, and I've always thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of cool if something different kind of, happen with this character that's, that strays from the original content. But that's something that comes to my mind, I guess, that one.
The second question I have, that's a good one, by the way. The second question I have to ask you, why is Hollywood, when it comes to horror, why are they afraid to pick out new indie directors or filmmakers to make movies?
Because they think that they've got it all figured out. And I think that if you don't fit a certain mold, or if you don't have the numbers that they're so used to. I was at Catalina for a whole different type of film it was a documentary, and I ran into a Hollywood exec. He was petting his dog in front of his lawn. I had no idea who he was until after we were talking for like a half an hour. And he was saying that Hollywood just puts a different type of standard. So for an indie filmmaker, if you've got, let's say, 600,000 views on your YouTube, on a video on YouTube, well, that's great for us. But for them, that's nothing. And so they kind of hold us to those kind of standards, because they're thinking, well, anything less than 5 million views is a failure. Well, for us, 5 million views, what are you talking? I mean, that would be great. So he was saying, like, it's just unfair. They just have a different perception of reality than us. So it's harder for filmmakers to break into Hollywood. So he was telling me, he goes, just be an independent filmmaker. You could probably make more money with a lower budget, with bigger margins. Platforms are changing, especially since COVID. There's self-distribution now with, let's say Indie Rights or Film Hub or Bitmax, or people can have even like their own channels and make money that way. You can monetize your channel. So I don't, if Hollywood's going to hold us to unfair standards, then, well, screw them. I mean, I like watching independent, low-budget films. Once these directors go into Hollywood, well, now it's fast food, and I want a good meal. I want something that's different. And Hollywood, they're not looking to do anything different. They just, if it works one time, they'll do it 100 times, because and they've ruined so many films that I'm just so over it. Not to say like Hollywood can't produce anything good, because they can, but I mean, there's so many great independent films, and I like it when I watch an independent film and if it's rough around the edges. I don't need everything to be perfect. I'd rather see what a director can do with a very limited budget compared to like $1 zillion budget.
Me too.
I have a family member that works for Hollywood, and if you don't have everything perfect, in a Hollywood movie, how can that, like, when I was doing the
Yeah.
Luring, I was everything. I was the script consultant. I was the PA. I was the director. I was doing everything. And that's what independent film is all about. Filmmakers that have to wear all these different hats. And so it is a little rough around the edges, but I think that there's something really cool about that. And as a kid, I used to watch those kind of films. I didn't know what independent films were at the time,
Mhm.
but I was always drawn to these kind of B horror films and with like
Me too.
Christopher Lee, or and just like, holy shit, like these are really cool, and they hold a special place in my heart. These polished Hollywood blockbusters are just, it just doesn't seem, with the perfect studio lighting. I don't know. I don't know. I just can't get into it.
I grew up in the VHS area, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. I watched the Full Moon and Trauma Crap and all that
Yes.
stuff, and I loved it. I did not know, like you said, I didn't know that was B movies. I didn't know that was low budget movies.
Mm-hmm.
It was a movie. It was a horror
Yeah.
movie, and I found them entertaining. So,
Yeah, they are.
I agree. Yeah, and I 100% agree. Like, indie right now is doing something, especially when it comes to horror, is doing something that major studios are not. They're missing out on.
Yeah, it's great, and it's also, I love short. I do a lot of short films too. I'm actually hoping to shoot something before Halloween, and we have YouTube. When I went to college, we didn't have YouTube, and if we wanted someone to watch one of our films, we'd have to put a sheet up and get a projector, or rent a theater, which, if we could even dream of doing that. And now you can shoot something on your iPhone, and it can look great, and you could post it on YouTube. And you can share it. You can share it, to someone across the state or across the world. It's so amazing. And so, I mean, obviously, then you can flip that and say, well, it's oversaturated, and all that kind of stuff. But it'll weed itself out. I think the good stuff always kind of rises up, and I'm glad that there's more opportunities for filmmakers. Like, we need that, because I look at all these unique voices that we get to see, and I think it's great.
It is. It's absolutely amazing, and that's why I promote it so much, because there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I feel like hardcore horror fans are not missing it, but I feel like the casual are the majority of horror fans. They're missing out on some great stuff, because they're sitting back and waiting for the next Blumhouse, which is nothing wrong with Blumhouse, but they're waiting for the next Blumhouse, and there's so many other great movies that are, I feel like, just going right under the radar.
Hell yeah. No, I agree.
All right, final question. What is one horror movie that everybody loves that you feel is overrated?
Man, these are tough questions. Well, I first have to say that I respect all filmmakers. It's not an easy job. It is very difficult. But one of the franchises that I'm not particularly drawn to is Paranormal Activity. I respect the hell out of it. I just feel, I don't know, when I watch it, I just it didn't appeal to me. Not to say that it shouldn't appeal to other people, and I'm definitely not trying to speak for everybody, but that's something that I feel some people are love it, and I kind of never got into it, especially the ones after the first one. The first one is, I think, probably the best one out of all of them. But those are the films that just don't speak to me. But I'm a weirdo. I like certain films, like Ginger Snaps, for instance. I love that film. Or there's other independent films that I absolutely love that most people haven't really heard of. Or even foreign films, foreign horror films that I like that most people haven't even heard of. So I'm not really the norm. I'm not the maybe the best person to speak on this, because maybe a lot of people love that film. But I respect the fact that it was low budget, and I respect the hell out of the filmmakers that did it. And so as a filmmaker, studying that film, I think, is so worth it. I think people should really study that film and really learn from that. But just for my pure enjoyment, it's not something that it appeals to me per se. I like vampires, monsters. Elvira, I see that you have a poster of her. Like, I love her. I grew up watching her. With screening these, like, B horror films and stuff like that. So my taste is kind of different. But I think it's also important to be able to analyze films, even if you may not be so drawn to it. you should at least understand why you're not drawn to it, but you should also respect it, because they did something that is incredible. They not only did they make a lot of money with a small budget, but I thought that their idea was at least very creative. It may not appeal to me, but that doesn't mean I can't be objective and say, yeah, but they executed it in a really good way. The marketing was dead on, and they seized an opportunity. So, my hat goes off to them, but it's not something that like I can watch over and over again, like, Bram Stoker's or other horror films, or even the new film that's out now, The Substance. I just saw that, and like I want to watch it again. I just saw it last night.
Oh, so that's on my watch list. I got to watch that next.
Yeah, there's some people are, without giving too much away about that film, some people don't like the third act. They thought that it changed so much, but I don't mind films that when you make a film, you're also I like it when I know that the filmmaker enjoys themselves, when they enjoyed the process. And when films change genres in the middle of the film, I don't mind that at all. I think it's great, so I think it was a great film. I really liked it, and Demi Moore was incredible in it.
I'm definitely going to check that one out. By the way, I love the Paranormal Activity series. I'm one of the few small percentage that I love Paranormal Activity series, and I also love the Blair Witch Project, the first one.
Me too. I love Blair Witch.
Love them. Love those movies.
Which was the Blair Witch? Okay, there's a Blair Witch film that, I don't know if it's the third or fourth one, where they find like the hut inside the woods, and when they go in this like hut type of thing, like it's way bigger inside than it is outside, and they're running down. Is that
part three? But I don't think there's a part four. I know there's part one. Then there's Book of Shadows, which I did not like.
Yeah.
And then part three was, it wasn't like a reboot. It was like one of the sisters was trying to find the brother from the first movie, and it was more of it had a big budget look to it.
Yeah.
And I saw that in the theaters, and I didn't think it was that bad. A lot of people bashed that whole entire series. I love part one. Part two, I agree with everybody. It was tough to watch, and part three was watchable.
I loved the third one. The third one was my favorite one. Yeah. The first one, as a filmmaker, I knew what like. I'm like, okay, this is not real, which obviously, I knew that it wasn't. But I had friends that swore that it was real. I'm like, oh my god, like
it was during that time.
Yeah,
marketing. It was a time where you didn't know if it was real or not.
It was the way that they marketed the film. And for people that aren't filmmakers, they really touched the nerve. They really were they were brilliant with that. Mm-hmm. The third one, there's something about, what was that film with John Cusack, Room 1307 or something like that? So there's a scene in that film where he's in the room and he calls his wife, and the wife is saying, we're there. We're outside your room. There's, you're not there. And so going in another dimension, for me, that freaks me out. And so that's, getting back to the luring, there was an element of that. Like, so when the devil is talking to a character, we had practical effects where the lights are going down dim, and they're in a different void, a different world. And that, to me, always scares me, because what are you going to do if that happens to you? Like, what do? You can't defend yourself.
Because I was about to ask you that, I didn't want to spoil. I didn't want to spoil anything, because, like, the main character, he talks to a specific individual. It's almost like he's getting guidance from that person, and like they'll be in a noisy area, like a bar or somewhere, and then everything goes completely black and silent. But it's like he doesn't even notice.
No.
All the noise has stopped. Where has everybody went? I'm having this conversation with someone, and it was an interesting thing.
Yeah, that is kind of, for me, very scary, because there was one time I did acid, and I swear to God, I felt like I was floating away from the earth, and I felt like my body was turning away, and if I turned away and if I couldn't see the earth anymore, I would be lost in space. So it kind of freaked me out. So when I make films, especially with The Luring, I kind of wanted there to be that void. Like, what would that look like on a very small budget? Evil, the devil they're not. They can really mess with you, and they take you into this like purgatory, and you don't know it's real. You don't know if you're in a nightmare or not. And I kind of wanted to have that element, and I did a short film called Cynthia, and it's really about this abusive boyfriend who is in purgatory. And so a lot of that element I took from, and I put into the luring, but to be in this void, like I don't know how to defend that. I'm a martial artist. I can probably handle myself in most situations, but you can't handle yourself against being in this nightmare void. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do anything. You're and so like,
Yes.
and that kind of freaks me out. And so any kind of film that deals with that, like the John Cusack film, like that, it's like, okay, that kind of got me a little bit, you know. And so I like that.
I agree. Now, Christopher, where can everyone find you?
The best way for people to find me is probably on Instagram at Wells Christopher, or they can go to my website kpictures.com, like the letter K. That's pretty much it. I thought I would have to get like a Twitter and blah blah blah, this, that, and I'm like, I can't deal with all this social media crap. If people want to see my stuff, my short films, they can of course find me on YouTube, Christopher Wells filmmaker. I'm trying to do more and more short films, mostly horror and sketch comedy. Comedy and horror are very interlocked, I feel.
Yeah, they are 100%.
And so I'm doing more of that. Those are really like the three places. But I used to have a Twitter. I don't even know what my handle is anymore. I can't even deal with it anymore.
Is there going to be the Luring 2? Because the movie does leave off a kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, someone was joking, and they said that there should be a prequel. I don't know how that would really work, but yeah, look, if someone wants to help me fund that project, I'll write it. I'll write the hell out of it. As an independent filmmaker, the reality is we're always looking for work, and it's feast or famine. And it's not something that I'm working on right now. Right now, I shot a proof of concept, Elimination Strain, which is a short film, and I'll be using that to leverage investors, and that's how I did the Luring. I shot a proof of concept, presented it to investors, and they wanted to know more. And I think it's important for filmmakers to know, if you're going to make a film, it's great to do a cliffhanger, a proof of concept cliffhanger, because you want your audience, who are usually investors, or if you're doing an Indiegogo, whatever, people want to see something that they want more of. Well, how do you do that? It's usually the first scene of your film. And so that's what I did with the Luring. I shot the first scene with Elimination Strain. I kind of, the script has changed a little bit, but basically it's the first scene of the film. So there's no explanation of like what's going on, but you want more. And so I think that's a valuable tool for filmmakers to use. And you don't have to put a lot of money into it either. You could shoot it on your iPhone or whatever. But I think that's a great way to raise money, whether it be through investors or through like an online campaign.
Love it. Listen, Christopher, keep up the good work, man. I love the Luring. Listen, everyone, get your asses over to Tubi and Amazon Prime and check out the Luring. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Christopher Wells. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.